Learning hypnotherapy has been such a life-changing thing for me. I kind of divide my life into two bits, like before hypnotherapy and after hypnotherapy. And it's really just this understanding that so much of what happens in our mind is happening on an unconscious level. You know, those decisions that you just make without thinking about it, that you just, you follow the patterns that are just in your subconscious mind. And when you become aware of that, when you learn about hypnotherapy and what really is going on in those kind of moments where you just, do something automatically, like you reach for your phone, or you start scrolling, or it may be you reach for some food or something else where you're not consciously thinking about it, but you're running kind of these programs in the background. When you become aware of those programs, you have this lovely aha moment where you get to change them, and that gives you so much power. It's really the most amazing thing. Having that ability to really understand how your mind works ultimately gives you freedom. It gives you freedom from old habits. It gives you freedom to really step into who you want to be, how you want to live your life. And I think, on a spiritual level, it really opens up and unlocks this why am I here, what am I supposed to be doing question, because you have all of these clues on the inside that by using hypnotherapy, they kind of rise to the surface. You learn so much more about who you are. And I think, that's really the most important thing, freedom. Understanding myself at that really deep subconscious level has improved my relationships with my husband, with my children, with my mother, all of those kind of relationships where you have these subconscious things happening or triggers happening in the background. And when you're aware of your own process and what's happening inside, it gives you so much more empathy for the other person and where they're coming from. So when I'm in, what I would have called before, like arguments or tiffs or those kind of things, I'm really able now to have that kind of stepping back and making space and really hearing the other person rather than getting caught up in my own process. And so because of that, it's really improved. The relationship with my husband is 100 billion times better than it was before hypnotherapy. The relationships with my children, being able to help them with their mind programs and how they do things, has been amazing. Just like with my son, Jake, he is a very, very avid cricketer. And so one of the most lovely things that we've been able to do recently is to create a really cool hypnotherapy recording for him and his team about really getting into the zone, visualizing success, and sharing this ability to train our minds in the right direction has been really cool to share with friends and family. I think it becomes part of your DNA, part of who you are. And like, for example, when the boys are taking exams or doing assignments, they very much kind of get into this zone of being able to be in study mode. And it's not a formal hypnotherapy technique as such, but it's, I think, being absorbed in my world and the way that I speak and the kind of techniques I've shared with them, it's become, part of their DNA, the way that they do things. I think thinking back to when Jake was in hospital and we were kind of navigating this new kind of terrain, there were lots of other parents who were going through the same journey. And I saw, the whole spectrum of how people react in those moments. People who didn't necessarily have these kind of tools and were finding it really, really tough to navigate through it with the emotional ups and downs. And of course we had that as well, but I think we also had this grounding ability to focus on what we wanted, on what the next stage was, on what the next moment was. I'm just thinking about the hypnotherapy that I did for Jake's cricket, and in cricket you have to really focus on the next ball. Whatever happens with the last ball, whether it's, you know, you've missed it or something's happened, you have to forget that completely and focus on next ball. And so one of the mantras that we teach the cricketers as they're kind of going out and, you know, playing the game, is that they stay in the moment, and their mantra is next ball, next ball, next ball. So with going through his journey in the hospital as well, it was very much focused on, right, next thing, next procedure, forget about the last thing, let's focus on the next thing. And he got very, very good at just being in the moment, being very patient, knowing that things were gonna, you know, move off and he'll get through them. I think that was, yeah, one of the most useful things about how he used it, but also how we used it as a family, to just, yeah, focus on the positive and what we could be grateful for in that moment. And we often looked at the nurses and went, you know, aren't we lucky that we have Nurse Joe? Aren't we lucky that we live in Christchurch and we've got this amazing facility? Aren't we lucky that we have, you know, just a beautiful view out of the window? I think focusing on those things that you have is a skill, and something that hypnotherapy really helps you to hone. As I learned hypnotherapy and I made changes for myself, I had these lovely kind of wow moments where I had realizations and understandings about who I was, what I wanted to do. Transitioning from just being able to help myself and help my family to actually making this a job where every single day I see people and make their lives a bit better. Sometimes it's amazing changes where they come in with, you know, panic attacks and, you know, living a life that is such a small percentage of what they could be living. And then we might do one hypnotherapy session. I love this question. At the end of a session, I'll always ask, okay, let's see if we can bring back that old feeling that you came in with, especially with people with anxiety or fear or cravings for cigarettes or whatever it is. At the end of the session, I always ask, let's see if we can find that old feeling again. And my favorite thing is when they do this thing where they look around for it. Their kind of eyes look up to the ceiling as if it's like going to be somewhere where they can grab it, and they can't find it. And that's my favorite. I mean, it doesn't happen every single time, but when it does, it's the most magical thing. And there's kind of like, you can see their mind turning over looking for the old way of being, but it's already changed. They've already become a new version of themselves. And to do that every day is so cool.